What if that nagging feeling in the back of your neck was real? What if those hands reaching out from the dark that you believed were there were there? What if the monster in the basement really existed? And what if there was really something under the bed? Would you have the courage to face your fears?
I've been performing the same morning routine for the past 15 years. Wake up at 6:13 a.m., brush teeth for exactly 2 minutes, shower for 7 minutes, get dressed in clothes laid out the night before, make coffee with 2 tablespoons of grounds, never more, never less. My wife used to tease me about my rigidity. Live a little, she'd say, rolling her eyes when I'd check my watch during breakfast. The world won't end if you drink your coffee at 7:05 instead of 7. But she was wrong. The world very much could end. I learned that the hard way. It started 3 weeks ago. I'd stayed up late watching an old movie marathon, and my alarm didn't go off the next morning. I woke up in a panic at 7:45 a.m. My routine completely derailed. As I brushed my teeth, I noticed something odd in the mirror. A slight delay between my movements and the reflection. Just a fraction of a second, but enough to make me feel queasy. I chalked it up to my rushed morning and sleep deprivation. But when I got to work, people were acting strange. My colleague Sarah walked past my desk 12 times in an hour, wearing the exact same expression, saying the exact same, "Good morning, Dave," each time. When I finally stopped her to ask if everything was okay, she looked at me with vacant eyes and repeated, "Good morning, Dave," 3 more times before walking away. That's when I noticed the windows. Beyond the glass, the clouds weren't moving. They hung suspended in the sky like a painted backdrop. And in the parking lot below, a bird was frozen mid-flight, its wings spread wide but completely still. I ran to the bathroom and splashed water on my face. When I looked up at the mirror, my reflection smiled at me, even though I wasn't smiling. And that's when I heard the humming, a low mechanical drone that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The fluorescent lights began to flicker, and in the stuttering darkness, I saw my reflection step out of the mirror. It reached for me with hands that looked almost, but not quite, like mine. The fingers were too long, the joints bent in the wrong directions. I ran all the way home, locked myself in the bedroom, and waited until I passed out from exhaustion. When I woke up the next morning at exactly 6:13 a.m., everything was back to normal. Sarah had no memory of our interaction. The clouds moved as they should. My reflection behaved exactly as it was supposed to. But now I understand. The morning routine isn't just a quirk or a habit. It's the only thing keeping reality stitched together. Every morning, I'm reconstructing the world, one carefully timed action at a time. And if I miss a step, if I deviate even slightly from the schedule, well, let's just say my reflection is always waiting for another chance to step through. The worst part of it all? This morning, I noticed my watch is running 2 minutes slow, and I can't find my backup alarm clock anywhere. I swear I left it on my nightstand last night, right next to the note I definitely didn't write, the one that says, "Let me out," in my own handwriting. I haven't slept in 72 hours. The note on my nightstand has multiplied. There are 7 of them now, each in my handwriting but written with slightly different pens. Some say, "Let me out." Others say, "You know what you did." And one just has a series of timestamps that haven't happened yet. My wife's been gone for 3 days. She left a voicemail saying she was staying with her sister, that I've been acting strange lately. I've played it 14 times now, and each time her voice gets deeper, slower, until it sounds like something grinding metal beneath the earth. I should probably mention my wife died 4 years ago. The routine is getting harder to maintain. This morning, I turned on the shower at exactly 6:15 a.m. as always. But instead of water, black coffee poured from the shower head. It was still hot, Still had exactly 2 tablespoons of grounds per coffee, just like I always made it. I stood there, letting it run down my face, afraid to break the routine. The mirror is getting worse too. My reflection doesn't just move on its own anymore. It ages. Every time I look, I see myself a little older, a little more withered. This morning, while I was brushing my teeth, I watched my reflection age 30 years in 2 minutes. By the time I finished, an elderly version of myself was staring back at me. Lips pulled back in a rictus grin, revealing teeth that had too long since rotted away. I did some digging online about the previous owner of my house. His name was David Miller, just like mine. He disappeared 15 years ago, exactly when I started my routine. The article I found had a picture of him standing in front of my house. He looked exactly like me, down to the small scar above my left eyebrow that I've had as long as I can remember. The thing is, I don't remember moving into this house. I don't remember anything before the routine started. Just 15 years of perfectly timed mornings, each one exactly the same, each one keeping something at bay. Last night, I found an old VHS tape in the basement. The label says, "Morning Routine, Attempt number 15. I don't own a VCR, but my reflection does. I can see it in the mirror world, sitting on a shelf that doesn't exist on my side. The reflection keeps pointing to it, mouthing words I can't understand. The timestamps on that mysterious note are getting closer. The ones match the exact moment of my wife's voicemail changed. The second one corresponded to when I found the article about David Miller. The third timestamp is set for tomorrow at 6:13 a.m., the time I usually wake up. I think I finally understand what's happening. I'm not maintaining the routine. The routine is maintaining me. Each morning, I'm not just reconstructing reality. I'm reconstructing myself. And I'm doing it wrong. The real David Miller, the original one, is still out there, trapped somewhere between reflections, watching as I live a corrupted version of his life. But here's what terrifies me most. I just noticed that my watch hasn't just slowed down. It started running backwards. In my reflection, it's starting to look more and more like the man from the newspaper article. The next timestamp is in 6 hours. I don't know what will happen when my alarm goes off tomorrow morning, but I'm starting to think that maybe I'm the one who needs to be let out. I found a way into the mirror world, but I wish I hadn't. After my last update, I noticed something in that newspaper article I hadn't seen before. In the photo of David Miller standing in front of my house, there was a small detail in the window behind him, a reflection of someone taking the picture. But David Miller lived alone. I stayed up all night scrubbing through frames of the security cameras I set up around the house. At exactly 3:47 a.m., all 15 years of footage played simultaneously on my laptop screen. Each video showed the same thing, me, performing my morning routine, day after day. But in each one, I looked slightly different. Different clothes, different haircuts, different ages. All with that same scar above my left eyebrow. We were all David Miller, and none of us were. I decided to break the routine. At 6:12 a.m., 1 minute before my usual wake-up time, I deliberately unplugged my alarm clock. The humming started immediately. That same mechanical drone from the office. But this time, I didn't run. I followed it to the bathroom. My reflection wasn't there. Instead, the mirror showed my bathroom as it really was. Old wallpaper peeling away to reveal hundreds of tally marks carved into the wall. 15 years worth of warnings, scratched into the drywall by God knows how many versions of myself. I pressed my hand against the glass, and it went through. The mirror world is wrong in ways I can't quite describe. Everything is backwards, yes, but it's more than that. Time moves differently here. I can see traces of all the other David Millers who came before me. ghostly after images performing their routines in endless loops. Some of them notice me, and some don't. In the living room, that VHS tape sits on the shelf, right where my reflection pointed to it. I finally worked up the courage to play it. It's security camera footage, dated 15 years ago. It shows the real David Miller performing his morning routine. Everything is identical to what I've been doing, except for one crucial difference. At exactly 7:15 a.m., he does something I've never done. He opens a small box kept in the bottom drawer of his dresser. The video cuts to static after that, but I found the drawer in the mirror world. The box is still there, and inside, I discovered a stack of letters, all addressed to David Miller, all from something called the Chronological Preservation Society. The last letter is dated the day he disappeared. It reads, "Final notice. Your application to the Temporal Replacement Program has been denied. Your attempts to create copies of yourself through the mirror network must cease immediately. The boundaries between realities are not meant to be manipulated in this way. You have until 7:15 a.m. tomorrow to terminate all temporal duplicates and restore original timeline integrity. Failure to comply will result in immediate chronological correction." He didn't comply. And now I know why the routine was so important. It wasn't maintaining reality. It was hiding us from them. I can hear footsteps upstairs, in what should be my bedroom. They don't sound human. My watch has completely stopped now, frozen at 7:14 a.m. I have to make a choice. In exactly 1 minute, in the real world, another David Miller will wake up and begin his routine. But this time, something's different. This time, I'm on the other side of the mirror. Time doesn't flow correctly in the mirror world, so I'm not sure how long I've been writing this. What I do know is that I'm the last David Miller. All the others are gone now. I watched them disappear, one by one, as the Chronological Preservation Society finally caught up with us. They're not people, not really. They wear suits and ties, but their movements are too precise, too angular. When they walk, their feet don't quite touch the ground. Their faces, they don't have faces, just smooth reflective surfaces that show you infinite versions of your own terrified expression. I found more letters. The real David Miller didn't just create copies of himself. He was trying to save his wife, Sarah Miller. Died 2009, car accident. But in his grief, he discovered something. Reality has seams, and if you perform the same exact actions at the same exact time every day, you can keep a small piece of the past from unraveling. The routine wasn't about maintaining reality. It was about preserving a single morning, the last morning he had with her. Over and over again, in countless parallel timelines, through countless copies of himself, he thought if he could just keep that one moment alive somewhere, she wouldn't really be gone. But he didn't understand the cost. Each copy created another fracture in time, another tear in reality that the Preservation Society had to fix. They don't care about love or loss or grief. They only care about maintaining what they call temporal integrity. I know how this ends. I've seen it through the mirrors, through the infinite reflections of reflections. In every timeline, at exactly 7:15 a.m., Sarah walks into the kitchen. She kisses her husband goodbye. She grabs her car keys. And then, I could keep the routine going, hide in this fractured reality, performing the same actions forever, preserving that one perfect moment. But the society is closing in. Those faceless figures are sealing off every timeline, every mirror, every possible escape route. There's only one way to fix this. I have to break the routine myself. It's 7:14 a.m. in the real world. The other David Miller, the one still on that side, is about to have breakfast. Sarah will walk in soon. The society's agents are already there, invisible to them both, waiting to correct the timeline once and for all. Unless I change it. I'm gonna step back through the mirror. Not to maintain the routine, but to break it. To do the one thing no David Miller has ever done, and let her go. Because I finally understand. The real horror wasn't losing her. The real horror was forcing her to live that last morning for 15 years, trapped in an endless loop of goodbyes. To anyone reading this, if you have a perfect morning routine that you never break, if your reflection sometimes moves a little too slowly, if you ever find yourself doing the same thing at the exact same time every day, stop. Break the pattern. Let time flow naturally. Some moments aren't meant to last forever. Some goodbyes need to be final. I can see her through the mirror now, walking to the kitchen right on schedule. My watch is ticking again, counting down the final seconds. It's time to wake up. Note: my morning routine ended today. If you're reading this, I succeeded. The timeline is corrected. Sarah Miller died in 2009, and David Miller disappeared in 2010. But somewhere, in a place between mirrors, there's a box full of letters and a VHS tape labeled Morning Routine, Attempt Number 15. If you find them, burn them. Some routines are better left broken. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed that story. Come back next time for some more scary stories. And as always, remember to face your fears.